why AKSN said it is a wrong question to ask whether a country is fit for democracy. Country becomes fit through democracy.
So many people are saying that the stock market is probably falling down. Many people are experiencing that the business is probably not at what they used to be before. What actually is the real scenario of the economy? Where is our destination in your understanding?
In all these countries which succeeded, the strong government or the authoritarian leader was a benevolent dictator. But how do you find a benevolent dictator? The wife of Ban Ki-moon was the first person to go to their central bank and took all her gold ornaments and deposited there. And every lady, everyone in Korea who had any gold in their possession, they sacrificed and gave to the guy.
That is social trust. Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Reflections. In our attempt to deep dive to understand from the visionary minds the projections, the strategy that will define the future of this region, we try to differentiate ourselves from the populist noise by delving deep into matters which may define the future of Bangladesh. Today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Anisuzzaman Chowdhury, who is Professor Emeritus at the Western Sydney University. Recently, he has also joined the cabinet as special assistant to our chief advisor, looking after the Ministry of Finance. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us the time today.
Thank you.
So the first thing that I really wanted to know, and which probably is also a popular question by many people over Bangladesh, is actually to know about the real economic situation. If I may further ask that, we are getting different data from the government. For example, our recent overall reserve has hit probably more than $24 billion. But at the same time, we can also see concerns from the overall population as well, because as a general person, they don't really understand the data. They understand what they experience. So many people are saying that the stock market is probably falling down. Many people are experiencing that the business is probably not at what they used to be before. So there's sort of a bit of a confusion in understanding that what actually is the real scenario of the economy. So you probably will be in the best position to explain us what's going inside.
That's a very good question. There is no doubt that the economy has turned around, and the reserve is now close to 30 billion. The economy was, if you compare this economy with a plane taking off, because we had the LDC graduation, and there's a lot of discussion about should we postpone or should we delay, etc., etc.
The graduation itself.
Yeah, I just want to explain it, because that is a big question now, and to explain why I think that the economy has made significant progress. If you look at as I said, if you compare the economy as a plane taking off, in 2018, the control tower, which is the UN, we fed the data about the preparedness, etc. So they thought we were ready. So asked us to leave the gate. So we left the gate. But during that process, when the plane is going towards the runway, the air hostess, the crew members, they tell you how to prepare about the seat belt, etc., etc. But the control tower doesn't tell you just go and take off. It asks you to go and wait there. So they wait here until 2021. And there will be a final check. Final check in terms of data, whether there's any trouble with the engine while you're waiting. It's a lot of time the plane, they do come back to the tarmac. And then they also see whether the runway is clear, whether there's another plane not landing or there's any other objects on the runway, and finally gives you go ahead and you go and take off. So we have taken off. So the question of should we delay, should we not graduate, is irrelevant because you have taken off. In the normal circumstance, the taking off up to the cruise height, when the plane will go to auto mode, pilot mode, normally takes 3 years. So 2024, theoretically, we would have been on the cruising height had there been no storm or any other things. But there was a storm, global storm, which was the COVID. So the control tower then gave you 2 extra years to try to go to the cruising height. Now in 2024, the plane was actually started from 23, was showing some trouble. And in 2024, the plane was topsy-turvy, it's about to fall. And the passengers then revolted, which the people went to the cockpit, said this pilot is going to crash the plane, and removed the pilot, announced whether among the passengers there was any experienced pilot.
We can save the moment.
Yeah. So the new pilot goes and sits there and checks what was the trouble, why the plane was doing silly things, and finds the data were wrong. So the pilot makes the judgment how serious the data issue. Finds that the preparations were not proper, the seat belts and oxygen masks were not working. Then also finds that a new storm, like war in Ukraine, Trump's trade war, and all this. But the most alarming thing that he found that they were almost empty of fuel. There was a lot of leaks, billions of dollars left the country. So that's what the plane was crashing. There was a temporary relief from the IMF, so you go to the ICU, but there's no guarantee that you'll come out alive from the ICU, but you go there. A lot of time people don't come out cured. So the new pilot actually took over the plane when you were in the ICU. Then the new pilot had to make a judgment whether I remain in the ICU, come out and crash, and so on. So luckily, the new pilot could successfully refuel on air. So now we have $30 billion reserve. So at least the plane is not crashing. You could easily come out of the ICU. If you want to stay there, fine, like we decided to stay for whatever reason. But we could have easily come out. We didn't need it. So that is the success. It's not a broken economy anymore.
I think that's basically when you first took over the role.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you mentioned, it was in Bengali, Bhungur economy,
Yeah.
which means fragile economy.
Yeah.
Have we moved out
Yes.
from that zone?
Yeah, that's the comparison I said about the ICU. When we were in the ICU, we don't need to be in the ICU anymore.
So we're no longer dependent on, we're not in life support.
Not
so
life support.
it's just being cautious just to ensure that.
There are a few other things. We can come out anytime.
Right.
And therefore, other reasons we are there.
Maybe it's a good thing to have that luxury of choice.
Yeah. People may differ, but that's the issue. Now, still, no, you have to make a decision whether, because the plane is not crashing, whether you should come back to Dhaka. Because you have enough fuel now. But that will not be a very nice thing. I mean, you went so far, coming back, why don't you go? Because it will take equal number of years to come back. So if you go on, then you have to go to the cruising height. And also, you could also plan to make emergency lending somewhere, not in Dhaka, but somewhere. You could land in Nepal or in somewhere in Africa. That is also not very desirable. So on balance, we decided to go to the cruise high.
And complete the graduation in that process.
So graduation means actually to go up to the cruise high. Done is not done yet. What is your final destination?
That is something the country will decide.
That's what we need, a consensus. The country might decide to go up to New York, then the party will say, we don't have enough fuel to go up to there. The passenger, they might say, we want to go to London. No, we don't have enough fuel there to go. Okay, so where will you go now? You might decide to go up to Malaysia, say, for example, not Burundi or somewhere, not coming back to Dhaka. Or you might want to go up to Singapore or Japan. You have enough fuel to go there, okay? So that decision you have to make. So you cannot go to New York or London, and Africa is not a place to go. I'm not denigrating Africa, but the reality is that we are much better than many African countries. Why you do go to Africa?
Right. That sort of leads me to the second question, which you already mentioned, that where is our destination in your understanding, that given the relevancy of the situation, you have all the real-time data, where do you think, like what model will be suitable? We have many debates in the society. For example, many people talk about being Bangladesh following the model of Singapore. Many people say that Bangladesh Singapore hoye jacche. Many people have the model of Malaysia. They want to compare Bangladesh with the Malaysian model of development, which is basically diversification and naturalization of many of the companies. So what, in the recent times also, you very interestingly brought about a new country which we have not heard much in terms of comparing their economy with Bangladesh, which is South Korea as well. So I would like to understand from you, like what actually
it is not just model as such. Model is a separate question which I'll answer separately. This is a reality check. What is possible? Model is how you get there. This is what is the realistic destination. Given your fuel, given your preparedness, given your circumstance, where you can ideally go or try. See, in my judgment, we can ideally go to a position of South Korea in the early 80s. Not South Korea now. What South Korea was in the early 80s. And we can probably go there in 2 years to 3 years. Because graduation will allow you, even if you graduate, all the facilities that you get until 2029, 3 years.
Yes.
So it's not that all the safety nets will be removed immediately. So they will allow those will be removed gradually by 2029. So the control tower will not just let you go. Okay, so the controller will ease you into that. It still will look after you for 3 more years, whether you are in trouble. And some countries decided to give you more. Britain, for example, said, we'll continue to give you support regardless. Australia said the same thing. And China is quite happy to extend 3 more years and something like that. So, but still you have to be realistic how far you can go. So why did I say Korea of the early 80s? Because if you look at the Korean manufacturing, because graduation and development is what it boils down into a structural transformation. You were a predominant agricultural society, you want to become a manufacturing society, then service-oriented society. So this is basically the pattern of transformation. Service, like we got a huge service sector, but these are low productivity service, household services, servants, boy bearers, and
Low tickets.
yeah. And in every developing country, that is high. But you want to go to high-end, high-valuated services, like people are providing services on the computing, all these things. So why did I say that? Manufacturing contribution to GDP in early 80s was about 20 to 22% in South Korea. And ours is about the same. So at the aggregate level, we already achieved the South Korea.
Of the 1980s.
1980s.
Yes.
Okay? I could have said Malaysia. Malaysia also had but South Korea is at a better position. South Korea is a developed country. Malaysia is not.
Absolutely.
So let's look at South Korea. Have a better, higher aspiration. So when you look at but if you disaggregate the data, you see in South Korea, it had 3 major manufacturing sectors. It had 3 legs to run. It had garments. Every country starts with garments, RMG. Then it had chemicals. And then it had motor vehicles and engineering, electronics, and that part of it. But in Bangladesh, your RMG is about 60% of the manufacturing total value of output. Then comes the pharmaceutical. We talk so much about pharmaceutical. It's about 3 to 4% contribution to the manufacturing. The rest, nowhere. 2%, 1%, so on. So basically, we have 1 leg. And Korea had 3 legs, 2 more. So, but if we try, because we have the base, like we have the pharmaceutical, we can push it up to, in next 2-3 years, 10-15% of manufacturing. And we have a good base of light engineering. We have been in the car assembly, even since Pakistan time, the Kandra industry. So we did not make the next step for whatever reason. If we can unlock that problem, because we have the base. A few weeks ago, I was in Runners in Tezca. They are making light vehicles, beautiful.
Bangladesh made even eco-friendly vehicles.
Yeah.
Actually come up.
So this is know-how. Shipbuilding, for example, we are into that. So we can choose even electronics. So we can actually grow more than 3 legs. More legs we can grow, the faster we can run. And Korea only had 3 legs. And when in 1980, when they dared to organize and host Olympic in 8 years' time, with only 3 legs, they dared to bid for Olympic in 1988, and they successfully held the 1988 Olympic. There was a bit of a doubt whether they can, so Japan stood beside it. Few events happened in Japan because the international community was not 100% sure Korea could do it.
And that was probably the hallmark of their development. When all the countries came and they hosted.
Yeah, and then they joined the OECD. So they let the world know that we are ready. While in Korea, until about 1970, Korea's per capita GDP was about the same as Bangladesh. And even Korea in the 60s, even worse than Bangladesh. While it was the poorest country in the world. They survived on grasses. They hardly ate rice. So
18 to 20 years, this transformation that they're holding.
So it is possible. It is possible. So, or I can say we could be Japan of 1956. Again, similar situation. In 1956, it dared to, and Japan is starting from the ashes and destructions of 2 nuclear bombs. Everything decimated. And yet in 10 years' time, they said we could hold Olympic in 8 years' time.
And now they're willing to give us 1.06 billion in terms of grants.
So they held the Olympic in 1964, in Tokyo Olympic. Same the story of China. Until 1990, China was struggling to prevent famine, large-scale famine. They were surviving on World Food Program's program. There was a widespread hunger until about 1990. In 10 years' time, in 2000, they said we would hold Olympic in 2008. We could be China of 1990. About the same, whether you want to go to Korea of 1980 to 80, or Japan of 1956, or China of 2000, is about the same.
So when are we expecting to hold the Olympics in your understanding?
Well, if you accept my analogy, and we have to bid for the Olympic in 2028, for 2036, which is nobody claim, no
one claimed yet, or no one bid yet.
You have to bid 8 years before. So for 32, Brisbane raised its hand, and nobody contested, so Brisbane got it uncontested for 2032. Los Angeles is holding 2028. So in 2028, the bid will be for 2036.
So we have 9 to 10 years in hand.
2 years to prepare for the bidding.
Yes. and
that is the year you will be your grace period for graduation will end. So you can see the opportunity. So graduation is not the end of this story. Why I'm saying this, take India, for example. India already graduated. It was never a least developed country. In the early 60s, India had more engineers than all of the developing countries combined. Whereas India could not hold Delhi Olympic. Pakistan in the 60s was the best performing country in the world.
They were the poster child for development at one point. Right?
Pakistan could not hold Karachi or Islamabad Olympics because they failed to have the target where all the whole nation will work towards it. We have to do this, we have to do this. So that is basically we are now in terms of, now you mentioned about the model. The model comes next. What is the common thread in these three countries that made it possible? How did they unify the national vision? And what role private sector and the government played in this? In all these three cases, the government played the leading role. There was absolute control over the economy. Like the banks were all government-owned. Government told them where to give the loan. So it was financial repression. Government also helped business to grow in terms of to become a conglomerate. But there was between business and government relationship. Will help you to become a conglomerate, but you have these responsibilities. You do not become conglomerate to siphon off the money, to loot the economy. You have this responsibility. Like in Japan, you have to guarantee lifelong employment. So in Japan, if you and in those days enter into the workforce with a conglomerate, you end your life with that conglomerate. You have to look after your workers. Same in Korea. That's why the Korean workers are so loyal to their companies. And China is also a command economy I don't have to go through. So what people don't understand about Korea and Japan, outwardly they are liberal economies, liberal countries, they are democracies, but they have a lot of social contract. These are social contracts that you have to invest in the country, you have to look after your workers, so on and so forth. These are social contracts. China is very different. I'm not talking about China. So what people misunderstand about the so-called Malaysian model or in the Singapore model, that they are authoritarian countries. Like I said, the government played a very significant role. And there's a famous saying by Lee Kuan Yew, it's called Lee's hypothesis, that you have to make choice between two Ds for third D. Third D is a development, democracy, or discipline. You cannot have three. You cannot have democracy and discipline and development together. So discipline is more important for him then democracy to achieve development early. So that's why they are authoritarian, very repressive. You don't have freedom of speech. You just execute the command. And when you grow, so in that scenario, a country is at a low level of development. Country is not fit for democracy. It's a luxury for them. So that is the debate. Now, Singapore is an example. Malaysia, not now, during Mahathir's time, was an example. China is also an example. Soviet Union in the early days was an example, rapidly developed until 1970. And then the development started faltering. The question is democracy suitable for development in that case? And the previous regime also had a repression of democracy, arguing the same thing.
It's democracy versus development.
Pakistan had the same thing. They introduced something called basic democracy. It's a hybrid form because the country was not fit for democracy. Actually, this is a very wrong question, whether a country is fit for democracy or not. Why? In all these countries which succeeded, the strong government or the authoritarian leader was a benevolent dictator. But how do you find a benevolent dictator? Is it just a luck? There's no way of knowing who is going to be a benevolent dictator. There's no selection process. And if you look at the history, you will find the probability of getting a benevolent dictator is very, very, so you can count it on your finger. Malaysia, Mahathir, and then it faltered.
Dictator probably could be more of a stronger word. So if he
or benevolent leader, or a strong leader.
Strong leader. I think one of the current example could be Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples given on him.
So again, how many of them you can count? But you will find many Idi Amins, many Mobutus, many Marcos, okay, many Ashrafs, many Ashfaq Hasinas you will find. So, but the other side, very few. So you don't take that risk, because once you get stuck with the bad one, and the other thing, even if you have a benevolent dictator, they are not good in handling crisis, because they don't have the base, the information channel where the problem is happening. And that's why when in non-democracy, when the economy collapses, the collapse becomes very big, very deep. So that's why A.K. Sen said it is a wrong question to ask whether a country is fit for democracy. Country becomes fit through democracy.
Interesting.
Yeah, through trial and error, you make a mistake, but you can quickly correct. But in a dictatorship, even if you know there is a mistake, you don't say it to the dictator because of fear, prejudice.
The violent aspect reduces and the authoritarian slowly because of the bubble, because of...
Yeah, so which is the right model? Still, democracy is with all the faults of democracy, that is the best system. Okay, the value of democracy is like... So I think I answered two questions basically here.
Thank you. So we got clarity on the model as well. You mentioned a little bit about the concession period. Like when we graduate, we'll still get some concessions from the different governments. When it comes to concessions, there's also this notion of grants and development funds and loans and soft loans. There's also a growing debate in the community. For example, with the IMF, we are due to get 1.6 billion maybe in June actually, out of the $4.3 billion package deal. So are these instruments, let it be the IMF loan or let it be the soft loans or let it be any development fund, is this actually good for the economic sovereignty of a nation? And at the same time, at the present scenario that we are in, do we really need this for our long-term visioning?
Actually, every country needs foreign exchange. Now, how do you get the foreign exchange? And why you need foreign exchange to begin? Because you can't produce everything. You need to import. Even if when you are producing something, some parts has to be imported. So you need foreign exchange to begin with. So even if you have enough saving domestic capital, still you need foreign exchange. Because again, as I say, your rupee, taka, you have lots of say taka savings, will not be able to buy something from abroad because taka is not an international currency.
Exactly.
So you do need the foreign currency. And for a long time, dollar was the main currency of exchange, so you needed dollar. US dollar.
Still need that.
But there are now dollar dominance has come down, but it still is the dominant currency. So you need dollar. So for that, how do you get it? One is through export. You get the dollar. And you get through remittance. The other is through either borrowing or through aid. If you can earn enough foreign exchange through exports and remittance, it's fine. But hardly any country can say that we earn enough through our exports and through remittance. Only few countries like China would say we can earn enough, but very few countries in the world. Now the question is whether you get it through borrowing or through aid, because you don't have enough through exports and remittance. So your only now your choice is either through borrowing or through aid. If you go through borrowing, then at the early stage, you don't have good credit rating, so you have to pay a lot of higher interest. Because that's the way the private capital market works.
Even from the developing banks.
No, I'm talking borrowing from the market.
From the market.
Yeah. And if it is from the development bank and from another government, say for example, bilateral or multilateral development banks, then the rate is less. Why? Because this is now regarded as sovereign borrowing. Sovereign country cannot default loans because there is no risk. So the lender is not because the interest rate has got a risk premium. If you borrow from the private sector, they built, because you can default that loan, so they built in that risk factor, and so you get higher interest. So why we call it aid? It's basically borrowing from the official sources. Official sources could be multilateral banks or another government. So we call it aid because it got a little bit of grant and its interest rate is low and it is long term.
But it's still actually...
It still is borrowing. Okay? But borrowing with bit of a concession of grant and a bit of a grace period. As a result, it's a longer period and the interest rate is low. And everything is because you cannot default. It's riskless. For the lender's point of view, it has got no risk. Okay, so that is the model. Or you can get direct foreign investment, like a foreign company investing, so they give you foreign currency. So these are the sources of how you get the foreign exchange. If you depend on foreign aid or loan, easy loan, there was the theoretical paper published in 1967 by Professor Anisuzzaman, a very revolutionary paper, which he showed, it was a theoretical paper. The title of the paper was Welfare Economics of Foreign Aid, that overall welfare reduces through foreign aid. Previously, the notion was foreign aid fills the gap, so it supplements. And Anisuzzaman was saying it doesn't fill the gap, it widens the gap. Just the opposite. And it supplements domestic savings, not complements domestic savings. Why? He said, because you become lazy in raising your own tax to GDP ratio. And you see in Bangladesh, tax to GDP is very low.
Very low.
And your foreign FDI will be also low. Because a foreign country or foreign bank, for that country to give me loan and it's guaranteed, there's no risk why that country or that will invest here and then take the risk of loss? Because it's a equity investment is you take profit or you take loss because you are a partner.
Every way has to be lucrative.
Yeah. So if you only take loan, ask for them loan, they will give you loan because they know for them it's easy way of getting money, guaranteed return. So that was his argument. So these are the two limitations. One, you will become lazy and your foreign investment will be low. So your tax GDP ratio is low, your foreign investment will be low. And the other thing that is more important, that you lose your policy independence because then they dictate what policy because that they look after their own interests. What policy is beneficial for them? They say, they appear that they are actually helping you with the policy.
But there are hidden interests as well.
Yeah. So this was the main argument of Dr. Anisuzzaman. And if you look at historical evidence, and he was right. Look at Vietnam. We say Vietnam's tax to GDP ratio is very high, about 19%. Ours is about 7%, right? Their FDI is about 4 or 5 times more than us. And they also have the policy independence. They are negotiating aggressively with other countries, their FTAs. And we cannot negotiate with them with strength because we are dependent on them, on their aid. They train us how to negotiate trade, FTA. Do you think they will train us enough that we can bargain with them on the trade? It's just a peculiar situation. You're on the one hand asking them to train us to negotiate with them. How are they going to teach us how to negotiate with them? And they will give up their advantage so easily.
It's designed to be in the same vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. So we need to have a clear strategy to come out of that mentality. I give you one example. Again, why I like Korea. Korea was fully dependent on American aid in those days.
They went for the joint venture.
Korea, there were few military coups, pro-Western, pro-American military coup. One was in Korea, one was in Philippines, one was in Pakistan, and one was in Indonesia. For them, US market was always open because they were seen as the wall against the spread of communism. And they had no problem with getting US aid and market. So these are the two things you need. And Pakistan was doing very well, as I told you before, but then it broke. Koreans used to come to Pakistan to learn how to do development. KDI, Korean Development Institute, was set up following Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, PIDE. And similar, there was one Philippine Development Institute, and same one is in Indonesia. So they follow the Pakistan model. Indonesia was the poorest country in Southeast Asia, and the best country was Philippines. But Philippines went backward. Indonesia went ahead, progress. So it's not the aid, not the market access. 3 countries I showed.
Right.
And then Korea, most advanced, most successful. So again, it's not because of aid. So because if aid and market access are the main factors for development, then all these 4 countries should have been on the same trajectory. So it means aid and market access are not the crucial factor. They are important, but not the critical factors. If they were the critical factors, then all these 4 countries would have been on the same platform. But they are not, and 4 different experiences.
Right.
So those are then, they are important, but not critical. So we have to understand that first from this 4-country experience. What made the difference between Indonesia and Philippines is the elite state. Suharto never went overseas. Only once. I say, I should not say never, only once. And same in Thailand. The Thailand king, the previous one, never, after he became the king, he stopped.
They do the treatment in their own country.
They send their children to their own schools, so they showed confidence in their own country. So this is my country. I have to have the best place as much as possible with my money here. In Thailand, the private hospital, Bamgrat and those are not the best hospitals. The best hospitals are actually public hospitals. We don't know from sitting here. And same in Indonesia. It's not as good as Thailand, but still they are better hospitals than the private hospitals. But in the Philippines, the elite thought America was our country. So they took all their... all these countries are corrupt. The money they gathered through the corruption or through legal process, all left. The mindset change in Philippines, now Philippines has turned around, after Aquino decided to come back. And he was killed on the tarmac. And that changed the mind of that one incident changed the diaspora returning, that no, this is my country. And he showed by example that even if I have to die, I go back there. That is my country. I'll die there. And why, for example, there was so much hope when Dr. Anisuzzaman took over is because of that. Because he could have settled anywhere after going through all these trouble, humiliation. Yeah. But he did not leave this country. He showed his commitment to this country. So that created the hope of the others to know, let's do something for this country. I hope that will continue. That spirit is very important. So these are the things which you cannot quantify, like you can quantify your capital, your other things, your aid. These are the things you cannot quantify. These are the things we call social capital. So you have to have social capital to combine all these factors. We call it glue. And the fundamental in this is the trust. And how do you build the trust? It's through interactions. If you don't interact, you don't build trust. So this trust is actually built within the civic organizations, like Lawyers Association, Doctors Association, Alumni Association, former student associations. Those associations must not be divided along different cleavages. It could be like in the case of Bangladesh, it could be along the religious line. One for the Muslims, one for the Hindus, one for the Buddhists, one for the Christians, and so on. It could be
partisan as well.
It could be based on districts, lawyers, Chittagong Lawyers Society, Dhaka Lawyers Society, Borishal Lawyers Society. So then you are not interacting with different people, different kind of views. There is no way you can diffuse or cross-check whether a news is a rumor or real. If it is, say, somebody, give an example, if there's a rumor that a Hindu boy abused a Muslim girl, so it could be right now. Similarly, a Jamaat boy abused a BNP girl.
And social fabric is not easy.
No, then the news comes to one group. And that group then starts getting angry. How can they do this? If there were the other party guy, they say, wait, let me go and check. Is it true or not? If it's not true, he will come and say, look, this is a rumor. Somebody is trying to create riot deliberately. Or if it was true, that guy, BNP guy, will go and hold that boy's ear, will punish socially there. He will either expel that guy from the party or have some fine, and these guys was okay. It was matter is resolved. He doesn't get the chance to get the fuel to explode. You follow what I mean? It's the trust build. Because then you see, the army guy, BNP guy, they're serious, they don't want to tolerate this bad behavior, or if it is a Hindu-Muslim thing. There are bad people in every group. But there is a social pressure to check that bad guy. And if you divide these civic societies along whatever line, then there is a disaster. So that national focus and
the social capital.
Social capital. And that helps the elite state. And that also, even one more example why I like Korea, vis-a-vis other countries. In 1997-98 Asian financial crisis, Korea was the worst hit country in terms of speculative attack, but it was the least affected. Worst hit, hardest hit, least affected. But if you look at vis-a-vis Indonesia,
most effective perhaps.
And country broke. East Timor went out.
Right.
And again, due to the pressure of the donors. Right? So, how? Because by then, Korea was a full-fledged democracy. Why the democracy is good? Indonesia was still under dictatorship. Korea successfully democratized in the 80s. When they were preparing for the Olympic, they were also fully democratized by then. They consolidated their democracy. So when their central bank lost the reserve, the wife of Ban Ki-moon, who became the UN Secretary General, he was at that time Foreign Minister of Korea. His wife was the first person to go to the reserve, their central bank, and took all her gold ornaments and deposited there. And every lady, everyone in Korea who had any gold in their possession, they sacrificed and gave to the guy.
That is social trust.
That is a trust. Because they know this is my country. I can't let this country go down. So you can see national interest become the primary driving force. They forget all the small differences.
And that unifies them.
They unifies them. So this is the beauty of democracy, full-fledged democracy. And this is the beauty of creating national state. And you can do it only through trust, building trust. And it is not an easy job. It's my humble request to the people of Bangladesh: don't allow any civic organizations to divide along party lines. And we can see what is happening in our universities. One group of teachers using their students to abuse and humiliate another teacher. So what are you teaching to your own students? Are you teaching any ethics? The doctors, if the patient is from another group, not treating.
It's an amplification of mistrust that's happening through this.
Yeah. So this is very sad.
We are almost at the end. So my last question is that we are at this point of the time, the whole country is very interested about the youths. Everyone is speaking about the youths. But there's a very concerning factor that also comes out when we are talking about the youths. We're all talking about the demographic dividend, but I think there's also a chance of a demographic liability. If you see the latest World Bank report, they're saying that if we remain at this current state that we are, we can only use 47% of the capital of the youth in terms of their contribution towards the economy. because of lack of education or many other factors combined. So, what is your vision? Because if you want to if you really want to host the Olympics by 2036, what's the role of the youth and what government
Youth
to do?
is critical because in our demography now, the population aged 15 to 29 is about 30% of the population.
47 million, maybe that comes out to.
Yeah, so about 30%. It's not exactly 30, just for the sake of it, about 30%, close to 30% of the population is in the age bracket 15 to 29. And that will not stay forever. So how do you utilize them? How do you train them? If you cannot utilize them, train them properly, as you said, you are not getting the full potential of them. Youth sitting at home, vagabond, not contributing to his or her potential. So, what I was proposing, or I'm still proposing, is to have a serious plan about this. One, to start with a compulsory 1 year or 2 year, depending on our budget, national service, compulsory national service.
Like Singapore.
Yeah, you don't have to include all the youth, or no, say age 18, whoever attains 18, that cohort must spend 1 year at least in national service. You don't have to include each and every one, but if you have a plan over 10 years, say every year 10%, then it will be less pressure on the budget and the facilities. As you build your budget and infrastructure, you bring another 10%. What is the advantage of this? Going to the national defense, you create a disciplined workforce. The discipline is also needed. And they will learn to get up early in the morning and through left-right training. They'll be smarter, they're physically better fit. And you can use this force for any national emergency,
Right.
national disasters, and etc., etc. They can be a very good source to recruit your police, your civil defense, answers, firefighters. So you have a central pool to draw. And they will not be only go or train in military kind of thing or defense kind of thing, not full military, but also you provide them some basic training, how they can be self-employed. You train them in vocational. 1 year is good enough, or you make it 2 years, because they'll be doing nothing but few hours of exercise, then literacy.
Maybe digital literacy as well.
So you teach them. So you'll see majority of them will be absorbed by the time either as a self-employment or in different recruiting agencies. They will not go to the universities. So the pressure on the higher education will decline. As a result, the quality of higher education will increase. You will not see university popping up at every corner of the streets, because there will be staff of students. So the quality of education will increase. So there's a lot of externality effects. And the enemies around you will also be very worried, because you have the whole nation has got some training in fighting back. You understand? So that is my proposal, and I have done some back of the envelope calculation. It's not going to be very costly in terms of budget. If you plan it like that, over 10 years we'll do this. Unless we can have some plan like this, like Professor Yunus is always talking about youth entrepreneurship.
Right.
He has got some plans, but I'm not criticizing it. I think you need a much bigger plan, national kind of a plan with multiple advantages or externalities that I'm mentioning. what we are doing now with that, okay, we are providing entrepreneur skill training. How to start the business, how to maintain the books, how to make the marketing. So you're only teaching that or bit of vocational training. But it's not under one national umbrella. It's a sporadic. With a sporadic program, you do not achieve much efficiency. So that's what my vision about the
youth in particular.
And again, I also say you should be also empowered politically. Because unless you empower them politically, their aspiration will not be reflected in the policies. So perhaps we should reduce the voting age to 16. Because why I say 16, at 16 you can join the army. So if you can fight at the age of 16, why can't you vote? Is voting more difficult than fighting? Your minimum age to get a driving license is 16. So if you can drive safely on the street, you can make judgment about safe driving, why can't you vote?
That makes them also conscious about the national issues.
National issues.
From an early age. Yeah. Well, thank you. We had a wonderful discussion. I think few of the hallmarks of this discussion was a quote that you mentioned from Amartya Sen, that we do not actually evaluate whether a country is fit for democracy or not. We make the country fit through democracy. So that's an amazing aspect.
Because there will be always mistakes.
There will be always mistakes.
And democracy allows you to correct the mistake quickly.
Also glad to know that we are already near the cruising altitude, if I may say, that our economy. Now it's only about fixing the destination.
Yes.
You mentioned about South Korea being a very interesting example and how it is relevant to Bangladesh. This is a model where most of the economists actually did not bring such comparison. But now that you've explained, it seems it makes more sense, and particularly how we can enhance our manufacturing industries from 1 to maybe 3 or beyond. And at the very end, very glad to know about your suggestions on how we can empower the youth. With that note, we'd love to end today's talk. I hope you also had a good time with us. We learned a lot, delving into the deep insights of the finance and economic, what's going on with our government at this point of the time. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you for inviting me and giving this opportunity.
Thank you very much.